Welcome to Ustick Road Church of the Nazarene in Caldwell, Idaho. This is the Sunday morning service. And now your speaker, Senior Pastor Brian Dyer.
I thought of all the extra head space that we have now, the room overhead. When I was on the boat, I remember we would store our food on the bottom of the submarine. We would put down these cans. So guys, we would walk through the engine room, and then we put all these big tall cans of flour and food that we had to have for the journey. If you were out for several months, you would have to have all this food, and there wasn't enough room on the boat, not enough storage space for it. So we would build false bottoms, basically, of our food. So you would have these cans, and they would put all these cans that were the same height on the bottom of the boat. So you were walking on the food that was going to be used later, but there was no other place to store it. Do you follow that? And so that was okay. It was a very clever solution. And I was fine with it because I'm 5'7". The guys in trouble were the guys at 5'10", 5'11", because they were not used to ducking their head. And so they would get these big raspberries on their heads where they would walk through, and they were used to clearing everything, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're clocking themselves. We had one guy got this huge gash. I mean, he had to get stitches. He just laid himself out going around the corner because he was not used to having to duck like that, and then all of a sudden he had to. And I thought, man, it is really amazing the difference with more headspace, the difference in the feeling. And here in the sanctuary, it made the difference. So I went with that as a theme this morning. 3 challenges. Number 1, get your head in the game. Get your head in the game. John chapter 3, verse 3, Jesus replied, "Very truly I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again." Luke chapter 9, verse 23 says, And he said to all, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." This command is repeated in all 3 of the synoptic gospels. In other words, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all repeat the same thing. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. So that's a commandment to us, to deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow Jesus. But it's not a very popular commandment in today's society. Oftentimes, we think of ourselves as somebody who comes to church to be served rather than to serve. But when we come to church, we are serving God. We are serving God, and by proxy, we also serve one another. And if we have a concept other than that, then we are missing the goal, we are missing the mark, and we are not living up to the standard of grace that is modeled for us by Jesus Christ. John 3:3 saying you got to be born again. I wrote this: if you are born again, your rebirth will include a transformation of your values. If you are reborn and your values are not changed, what did change? So if you're born again, your rebirth will include a transformation of your values. The world doesn't like that. And in Christianity, sometimes we like to hang on to those things, but it's bad theology. And I put the second challenge was to leave headroom. I did that right along with it. Ministry is done in the margins. In the margins. Leviticus 23:22 says, "When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigner residing among you. I am the Lord your God. We are not to harvest to the very edges of our fields." That is, those edges of the field are God's provision for the poor, as well as a demonstration of His love through His people. In this manner, the character of God is revealed to the world. We are not to harvest to the very edges of our field. That is God's provision for the poor, as well as a demonstration of His love through His people. Do you follow that, what I'm saying? Do you follow that idea? That sometimes what we tend to do is to think of every resource at our disposal as something used to serve ourselves. And that's not true. God gives you what you need, but inside, and I had a little diagram I made up for us, I had a little bubble that says, your needs. And then a big square around it that says, God's provision. The margin is all of the area around your needs that God has provided for you. But what's He given it to you for? Has He given it to you just so that you can make sure that you're as bloated as you possibly can be? That everything that you get goes towards what you want? That all of your wants are met? as well as all of your needs, I'm going to tell you the truth. Ready? All of your wants can never be met. Because as soon as you get your wants met, you'll want more. You can never out-earn your spending. No matter how much you earn, you'll be able to spend up to that limit. Any of you guys ever experienced that yet? You can earn, I've seen people, I've experienced it, where you earn more money and you go, now we'll have lots. No, you won't. No, you won't. If you don't practice any level of self-discipline, what you'll do, you'll just continue to spend. And you'll spend right up to that edge. And when you get up to that edge, there'll be nothing left. So then you say, I can't tithe, I can't give to this, I can't give anything to anybody except for to myself, because everything I have has to go to me. And you'll do the same thing with the other account which you have, which as I get older has much more value to me than the money. And that's my time. You'll do the same thing. All of my time has to go strictly to myself and to my family, and nothing can be spent on anybody else. Shame on you. You are gleaning to the very edges of the field. We as Christians have to leave that outside edges, or else the grace of God cannot prevail. Do you follow that? The people who came in and worked on this, they were giving us God's provision. They were working in the margins. And it's that way in everything. I believe that what our church has done by raising this roof is created margins. We've created breathing room and more area for ministry. And as we continue to do that in different things, we're giving ourselves more space to operate. But it has to happen in every area of our lives. It happens in our finances. It happens in our time. It happens in our homes. It happens in everything. The excess beyond what you need to survive is what God uses to minister to others with. Don't harvest to the very edge of your field, guys. Leave room in your life for the grace of God to operate. You'll be happier, first off, because you won't be so stressed. There's an irony of that. Is that when you operate and you stay within your budget of time and money and all of that, you become more contented. And then when something comes up, you can give and you realize you're giving out of abundance. And you're actually more thankful to God for that abundance, and you give more grace to Him and more thanks to Him for meeting your needs. But when you stress yourself out and you harvest all the way out to the outside edges, you're always stressed. I don't know if there's going to be enough for me. I don't know if there's going to be enough time for me. The church is having something, I can't participate in that because I have to look out for me. And you become selfish and you become ingrown and you actually lose grateful attitude. You lose your gratitude and your disposition. You become ungrateful because you're defensive and you're protective and you're scared. It's not a Christian concept, guys. It's not a Christian concept. The concept of a gracious heart has to begin with us putting boundaries on ourselves. Us making room in our own lives for the ministry to occur happens first with us saying no to selfish interests. You get that? Somebody say amen. And when we do that, the funny thing of it is all of the other ducks just fall in line. If you can get that one under control, the rest is a cakewalk. The rest is easy because that one is tough. It's really tough. That's the nature of Love Inc. Nancy and I went through Love Inc. And that's what we went through. Betsy and Jason have gone through, and I know Mike and Catherine over there now. The attitude behind it is, setting some boundaries on yourself so that you leave room for grace. You leave room for grace. And I believe it's just as important with your clock, with your time, as it is with anything else. And my heart grieves for people who don't do that, because if you don't yet, I would encourage you. If it's gone through Love Inc., we can help you with the finances or even the time. But if you don't do it, you're always stressed and it's always painful. It's a tough lesson to learn, but it's worth learning. Stay within that. Okay, head for the sun. Head for the sun. Head for the sun. S-O-N. Head for the sun. You can spell it any way you want to. But commit to God's calling without reservation. Without reservation. God's called you to a specific ministry, whatever that. We talked a lot today about the ministries of the church and the ministries that are done inside the church. But there are a lot of people who are still active and engaged in ministries outside the church too. God can call you to both. And the more you live within your own boundaries, the greater your margins, the easier it is for you to engage in other ministries, even outside the body of believers right here. Our church is active with Lifeline. I believe in the year ahead, I anticipate that we'll become more active with Love Inc. Nancy teaches boundaries over at Love Inc. right now, and I think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to get outside the church building that we're starting to anyway, and a lot of you do it by nature. Chi Coffee is a wonderful thing that we've been able to partner with, and I love being an encouragement to the ministry there. I've had people over the course of the year say, let's start a food bank. And I say, no, we don't need a food bank. The Salvation Army has a food bank. Why would we want to start a food bank when we can come alongside of somebody else and not repeat the same thing? Why not just be a supporter to something that's already going on and being done well? And to me, that's where we as a body of believers, man, if we came in and every single person active in the church, you were on the outreach or the trustees committee, you're active in a ministry in the church, but in addition to that, you're engaged in something outside. I'm excited about Embrace Grace. Right now we got Pam and Pat are doing that, and there are a number of girls. That's it's a Bible study for girls who find themselves in unplanned pregnancies. That's not a direct ministry of our church. Our church doesn't get it. We're not going to get to check it off at District Assembly as being something that we've done wonderful. But that's a powerful demonstration of God's love. And so for you and I, find out where the Lord wants you to be. What's He calling you to? What's He calling you to? And is there enough room in your life for you to answer the call? What's the stuff that's choking you out of the ministry? Maybe it's time to scale back on some of those things that prevent you from being able to do those things that God would call you to. Sometimes and it's not even bad things. I don't presuppose that most of you are doing anything awful or horrible, but sometimes the good gets in the way of the great. Sometimes those things that are okay get in the way of the things that are so much more spectacular. So that's what I want us to do in the year ahead. I want us to evaluate where we are, what we need to do in order to really engage what God has for us, where He's going to really call us to really be a part of something fantastic, what the Lord has ordained for us to do. I think if we see it as an opportunity, it changes the way that we behave. I believe we are called to engage. We are called to work. We are called to be a part of the solution, not just the problem. Do more than honk your horn, guys. Do more than sit and watch as others labor and don't know if they're going to make it or not. Be a part of the solution. That's the call that I would commence to us this year, that we find out what we can do and then do it as unto the Lord, really as an offering to God.
Thanks for joining us today. You can find Ustick Road Church of the Nazarene on the web at usticknaz.org and on many social media sites at UstickNaz. Thanks, and God bless.